I definitely think that language should be treated as a living thing, and like in the fact that it's like something that helps us create relationships, it's also something we have a relationship with, and like it can't be separated out like that necessarily. And I do think that the urge to do that comes from colonization, and something that like, so my family and like my community has been hit pretty hard by colonization. So a lot of our like just things that we have known and practiced have been just like taken away, you know. So like I am also speaking from the point of view of someone, like I'm also white and I also have like settler ancestors as much as I have indigenous ancestors, and like it's kind of hard to balance that, but also like I think that like the need to like define very strictly whether I'm one or the other is a settler mindset. So that's like not what I'm going for here. But something that we talk about a lot in terms of like language reclamation is our culture is encoded in our language. Our value systems are in our language. If you take our language away, you're taking the culture, you're taking the value system, you're taking our priorities, our families, our kinship, the way that we like interact with the world, you're taking all of that away too. And that's why like when like the settlers came in and like, you know, colonized shit, that's why they tried so hard to get rid of several languages. I think that's like encoded into Algonquian languages. All of them have something really important in common, which is animacy is encoded in the language. The language is based on verbs. Describing things is describing what they were doing. Like you don't say like that car is blue, you say the car is being blue. So like all of it is verbing, you are being something. Like you can't even say like the word blue on its own without conjugating it, because it's the act of being blue, right? But the definitions of animacy are a lot like wider than what you would think of as animate. So like water is animate. I don't know, like most most like animals and plants and all of that are animate. And like you might think like, oh yeah, duh, they're animate, like they're alive, but like that makes them a who, not a what. So it would be Awaina'ana is like, who is that? And then Kekwayanama is, what is that? And it's like a completely different like form of conjugation. And so that like focus on animacy is like just like deeply encoded in the language. The other cool thing about Michif specifically is gender is completely fluid. Whatever you're talking about can like switch gender in the middle of a sentence and it doesn't matter. It's about a role and it's about the gender that you are being, the verb of it. And like the language is built out of verbs, it's agglutinative. And so like that's something that's really interesting to me, because if you think about Michif in terms of like categorization, it's about 50% French nouns and 50% Cree verbs. But when you look at it as an actual language, it's a verb-based language, so it's a Cree language mostly. Like, I mean, it's its own language, obviously. Like, it came from Cree and French, but I think like because like the indigenous worldview was preserved in the verbs, it's there. It's an indigenous language, and like it was created here by indigenous people, and it's the only one like it, which is fucking fantastic. I'm extremely proud of it. If we're talking about like queerness and language, I feel like I can't really describe my queerness in a way that is acceptable in English to other people who speak English. There's been a lot of work done that I have not really contributed to, but I have benefited from a whole bunch, like research on like traditional words for gender and traditional words for non like Western cisgender conforming people, and like how our communities like dealt with that. Colonization has also left like a massive like scar there, because there's a lot of like really cis sexist, patriarchal, transphobic teachings that people pass on like they're empowering and like they're traditional when they're not. And they're completely born of Christianity specifically. But something that I've noticed in English is that people who speak English have a need to categorize things. So you are either transgender or you're not. You are a man or you are a woman. You are gay or you are straight. You know what I mean? Like, and like, I think that these labels are useful for like personal expression, but they need to be more fluid. And the harder people try to like police them and define them, the less like freedom any of us have. I've always really gravitated towards words that allow for that fluidity and allow for change, and like expanse within them, like queer and non-binary. And that's why I like our languages for gender, because I don't have to specify anything. It's more about the roles that I perform in my community, as opposed to like an idea in like Western English-speaking circles that gender is something inherent to you that you need to define, and it's like a soul-searching process that you define it, and it's not something that you do. And I feel like my gender is much more something that it's a verb, right? And so is my sexuality, it's a verb. It's who I am in relationship with, right? And that's not easily definable in a language that relies on nouns. And so like I can say that I am doing things, I'm performing roles, and like, I don't know, one of the phrases that I really like is, so Kai Minogue Pyle is a language researcher, a Two-Spirit language researcher, and has done a lot of work on looking for historical terms in Plains, Cree, Michif, and Anishinaabe-Milan. The thing is, like, these are living languages. We don't need to rely on historical terms, and so the important thing is learning how to express ourselves with the languages and creating new terms, right? So one of the like newer terms that I really like is Seconde de l'eau, which is, it means like the water. And so it really relates a sense of self back to the land. And it like, you can describe your gender and your sexuality as being Seconde de l'eau. And I like how we can describe ourselves by our relationship to land and community. And I think that's more important than doing any sort of like deep inner soul searching.